The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to Marketing Yourself for Public Health Practicum Opportunities. I'm Janine Hradsky, a member of the Walden Career Services Advising Team, and I'm going to get us started today. Joining us is Dr. Jennifer Perkins, Practicum Coordinator for the School of Health Sciences. Dr. Perkins has over 20 years of experience as a public health practitioner and academician, working with nonprofit organizations at the local and national level, as well as governmental health agencies. She's a certified health education specialist and remains active in both the American Public Health Association and the Society for the Scientific Study of Sexuality. The majority of Dr. Perkins' practical experience was with Dallas County Health and Human Services, where she worked in public health preparedness and bioterrorism response. She joined Walden University in 2009, serving as Practicum Coordinator and full-time faculty. Her research interests focus on sexuality and the reproductive health of adolescents and women. Also joining us is Janine Hradsky from Field Education Coordinator for the College of Health Sciences. Janine's background includes more than 20 years of experience in teaching and education outreach. She has worked at Walden University for over 8 years as an academic advisor and field education coordinator. Currently, she assists students with practicum policies and procedures. Janine has a master's degree in education with coursework in health promotion and health education. And again, I'm Denise Hradsky. My background includes over 20 years of experience in higher education, including 11 years with Walden University and 7 years in career services. My master's degree is in adult education. So next, let's take a look at what we plan to cover during this session. Our agenda includes the purpose of the practicum experience, what to consider to design a practicum experience that's a good fit for your skills and interests, ways to identify appropriate practicum sites, resources to help you become familiar with the Walden practicum requirements and practicum application process, best practices in preparing your resume, cover letter, and career portfolio, and finally, strategies to network and reach out to potential sites. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Perkins.
Thank you, Denise. The purpose of the MPH Practicum is to provide students with the opportunity to synthesize knowledge, develop competence in professional practice, apply knowledge to solve public health problems, develop a respect for and commitment to continuous professional development. Let's take a moment to get some audience feedback. What health issue or population are you most passionate about?
Okay, let's see what you have to say. Emergency preparedness, mental health of youth, environmental health, maternal and child health, injury prevention, public health research, and chronic health issues and prevention.
These are all great issues, and these are the type of health issues that we like to see our students involved in. One recommendation that I would give to students is, if this is an area that you're passionate about, begin now thinking what agencies in your community address those particular issues. So if you have a local or state health department that has public health preparedness activities, begin looking at the type of activities that health department is involved in. When it comes to adolescence or mental health, you can approach that type of health issue from a variety of strategies. You might want to work with an agency that specifically addresses mental health, and working with adolescents is just a small component of that. Or you may want to work with the agency that only works with adolescents and mental health is a component of that. So really the sky's the limit when you kind of know what you're interested in, and Janine and I can work with you as we move forward on how to best approach those particular health issues. So, if you could design your perfect practicum experience, what would it look like? You would need to consider what type of work you would be involved with. Are you the type of person that wants to go out and do community outreach, or are you more comfortable staying in the office doing some biostatistics and crunching numbers? What agency setting is most appealing to you? Are you more interested in working in a very formal environment, such as a health department with a more structured approach?
Dr. Perkins,
Or you have more flexibility in your appearance and on your strategies? What skills would you like to gain? If you know that public speaking is an area for improvement, then that may be an area that you want to focus on during your field experience. And what will your daily responsibilities consist of? Do you want a consistent, structured schedule where you know what you're going to do every day? Or are you more interested in having more flexibility and a little public health excitement by not knowing exactly what the next day will bring? All of these things you really should consider when you are doing your outreach to these various agencies, and be able to really articulate the type of practicum experience that you're most interested in. So when we talk about potential practicum activities, we have students that have completed a variety of projects. Students that have assessed community needs, facilitating presentations, developing educational materials for distribution within the community or agency setting, conducting community outreach. Students that are really interested in epidemiology, go out and investigate diseases, or participating in planning meetings. And I'm going to stop here for a second, because you may think, oh, well, what type of planning meetings? It could be something as simple as a town hall or a health fair, or it could be a more large scale event that your agency is planning, particularly for some large community-based organizations that may be involved with a community health summit with many partners involved. So you really want to think about the type of activities that you enjoy, as well as those type of activities that may challenge you a little bit professionally, that are areas for improvement. What makes a potential site a good fit? When you're identifying an appropriate field site, you want to think again that the agency is actively involved in public health activities, the agency can accommodate your personal schedule, and they're willing to agree to Walden's requirements. So when I talk about your personal schedule, if you know that you work full time and you're going to need an agency that has a flexible schedule with evening and weekend hours, you want to be very upfront with the agency when you're considering having a meeting with them. You don't really want any surprises that you go in, you have a great interview, and then they offer you a placement, and then you realize that their agency hours are standard 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, and those are your same working hours. So you want to make sure that they can accommodate your personal schedule. If there's going to be travel involved, and you know that you need to be in town always, you want to consider that as well. And you also want to consider both traditional and non-traditional agencies. And what we say, what we identify as a traditional agency would be a community-based health organization, non-profit organization, excuse me, health department, whether that's at the local, state, or national level, a federal organization. Those would be more traditional. When we talk about non-traditional agencies, those would be where public health isn't the focus of the agency, but public health and health promotion are a component of what the agency does. So this could be a regular corporation such as 3M, Home Depot, Target, that is not really focused on public health, but they may have worksite health promotion or occupational health programs that they offer to their employees. So when we talk about non-traditional, that gives you a little bit of flexibility in being innovative in how you approach and design your practicum experience. And then you want to assess your strengths. What is unique about you? When you go in to meet with the agency, we want you to be able to articulate your and present your best self. So what are your interests? What are your skills? You know, be able to talk a little bit about your personality and your values. Um, you may want to focus on some academic achievements that are relevant to the work that you are possibly going to engage in with this particular agency. Any related or volunteer work experience, professional contributions to the field of public health or specific to the health issue that that agency is addressing as part of their mission. Any community involvement that you may have or specialized knowledge. So if you know going in that you are a marketing whiz and they have a new public health program that they need to get out to the community, that's specialized knowledge and a specialized skill that could be of great benefit to that agency. We want you to go in presenting your best self and presenting your skills and abilities so that the agency sees that not only are you coming there to obtain knowledge, but you also have something that you can offer them. And it's a win-win for both the student and for the agency. Are you a good match for the site? Let me pause here for a second. What values and contributions can you bring to the site? So we ask students to do a self-assessment based on the agency that you're reaching out to. Each agency is going to have different needs. Each agency is going to have different desires for their student workers. So, you know, you want to be able to articulate that. What knowledge and skills will be most useful for that specific agency? Do your qualifications match their needs? And I always use the example, if they have an opportunity advertised and it says they require a bilingual person, while yes, you can still explore other opportunities, but know that for that specific role, you do not necessarily meet the qualifications that they're looking for. So don't get discouraged. They may have other opportunities that you're unaware of, but also keep in mind that you don't want to waste the agency's time by meeting with them only to find out again you don't meet the needs that they are looking for. As well as, does the site afford you the opportunities you need to complete the program? So we want to make sure that you can complete all 200 hours at one agency. We really don't like to see students get into a situation where they are unable to complete the 200 hours on site and then they're looking for other opportunities. Also making sure that the proposed preceptor that you've identified meets the preceptor requirements that we have, being a master's prepared individual. So you want to make sure that what we're asking and what the agency asking really meshes together well with what your needs are. Okay, time for some audience feedback again. What are some ways to identify a potential practicum site?
Okay, we'll just give everybody a couple seconds. And so agency websites, yes, definitely. Review local public health organizations. Connect with local chapters of national organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Society of Public Health Education website, and ask community representatives about community needs. Contact coworkers or friends. And another comment is, my selected agency is UNICEF in Zimbabwe. They're interested to host me for my practicum under the health and nutrition section, working with their team that is starting to work on school-based child and adolescent nutrition. I'm great at networking, designing materials, and doing a lot of advocacy work. And this is more of a question, however, there may be delays in getting the field site affiliation issue. So that's more of a question that Janine's going to go over some of the process types of questions during the session coming up soon. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Perkins.
Okay, so those are great suggestions on identifying potential practicum sites. One thing that I do want to encourage students, identifying and securing a practicum placement is a lot like finding a job. So if you find yourself networking, which is great, outreaching to different community forums, which is great, but you also want to use your immediate resources. So if there's a particular agency that you're really interested in working with, see how they're involved with the community. See how you can become involved with that particular agency early on. Also, when you are doing your computer, your internet searches for particular agencies, search by health concerns if you're interested in suicide prevention, if you're interested in asthma, if you're interested in reproductive health. So look at the agencies that are providing those services in your community, as well as look at agencies that have job postings in a particular area that you're interested in, and then reach out to the agency to see if they have any volunteer or student opportunities for internships and field experience as well. So you really want to kind of attack it from both ways. You definitely want to network, but you want to use those resources in your community as well. Did we have any other audience feedback, or we can go to the next slide?
Okay. Yes, this is Janine here, Janine Hradsky, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'll be going over the requirements for the MPH Practicum. So the best way to review our School of Health Science, the best way to find out about the requirements for the MPH Practicum is to review our School of Health Sciences Field Experience website. You can find the Field Experience website on your student portal if you go to the Academic Resources page, and then under Departments, towards the bottom of the page, you'll see a link for Field Experience. And when you click on that, it will bring you to the page that's shown here. Now, this is a page for field experience for all of the programs at Walden. So once you click in there, you'll just simply identify School of Health Sciences, and it will bring you to our specific and your specific information. Okay, so on this page, you'll be able to click on a tab for a student, it says manuals and guides. You'll be able to open up a student practicum manual and then also a guide for field sites. If you go back to the previous slide, please, there's a tab for forms, field experience forms. There's a section that's very helpful for frequently asked questions, and you'll find the contact information for me and also for Dr. Perkins. And then you'll also see a tab for career services where you can access assistance for field experience students from the Career Services Center. And Denise will be talking more about that in a moment. Before we go to the next slide, what is very important, you'll want to visit this site early in your program, as early as possible, come back to it often, and then you should begin your search for a site halfway through your program. It can take 1 to 2 quarters or sometimes even longer to find a site and finalize the placement. You might find a site quickly, but then all the finalization of the placement can take time. So it's very important to start early. It's so important. I can't tell you how many students have come back to me and said, I wish I had started my search earlier. Okay, on the next slide, we'll see here our student practicum manual. Now, this student practicum manual will answer most of your questions and also questions that will be asked by your site. It includes information that will help you before you begin your search for a site. It will help you prepare for your interview, and it will also even help you once you're in your practicum course and doing the hours at your site. Now, I just want to clarify about requirements. By requirements, we mean your own student requirements and then also the requirements needed from the site. So student requirements include what type of activities can you do, when can you start your practicum, what is needed from you so you can answer your site's questions when you apply there, and then also so you know what to do when it's time to apply with us for your Walden Practicum application. The application deadlines are also there, so your application can be reviewed and approved in time for your practicum course registration and when your hours begin. Okay, and then for sites, before we go to the next slide, you'll find in the manual what type of site qualifies, what type of documents are needed from the site. One of the most important documents is the field site affiliation agreement, and I'll help with this document. And then also included the credentials needed for your preceptor, how many hours are needed, and how much supervision is required, and so forth. So on the next slide, here we'll see our website. It's the Field Experience School of Health Sciences website. You'll be able to find information here that you can provide to your site to make it easier for them and for you. Okay, it's very important for you to review the information for students and also the information for field sites. This is the best way to be able to provide your site with what they'll need. You can go directly to this page by using the link at the bottom of the slide, or you can navigate into it from your student portal. Just know if you go in through your portal, you'll need to do some navigating. If you have any difficulty with that navigating, you can call me and I'll be happy to walk you through it. And then in the section called Information for Field Sites, where that red arrow is pointing on our slide, this will provide your site with the information not just about the practicum, but also about Walden. So this is a great way for you to help be an ambassador for Walden, and we get so much feedback from sites after the fact saying, I'm so impressed with Walden, I'm so impressed with your program. So it's really helpful if you can help them go to this site first so that they can see that even ahead of time. Now this is the location where there's also a short guide for your site it's either called a field site guide or guide for preceptors and site administrators. Depending on what your site prefers, you can download this guide and provide it to them hard copy, or you can provide them with a link so that they can go to this website and then just download the guide. In order to provide them with the link to the information for field sites, you'll just need to select the tab that says Information for Field Sites, where the red arrow is, and then go up to the browser and copy paste that link into an email, and you can send it to your site so that they can go directly to this page. Sites really differ. Some sites want a lot of information. Some sites only want bullet points or questions asked of you. So it's very important that you're familiar with all of this information as well. In the section called Information for Students, that's above the red arrow, there's tabs, and you can click on them for more information. There's a tab for practicum requirements. There's a tab called Finding a Site, and this is where you can find a list of field sites already on file. And there are tabs for the practicum application process and the documents for you, and then the documents your preceptor will need. So this is very important information for you to access so that you can be approved and registered on time to start your practicum course and then your practicum hours once your course is in session. Now we know this is a lot of information. It can seem very overwhelming. So after you review the information on the website and in the manual and guide, then if you have any questions, please call me or send me an email anytime, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions and to clarify the information. My contact information will be provided at the end of this webinar. But for now, let's transition to Denise, and she will be discussing marketing yourself to potential sites.
Thank you, Janine. So in addition to the Walden specific information that was just provided by Janine, you want to have a resume, cover letter, references, and letters of recommendation. Be sure to ask your references for their permission to use them as a reference before providing their names to potential sites. You may also want to have samples of your academic work and combine these documents in a career portfolio. So next, we're going to take a look at some of the best practices for creating your resume. So here's an overview of the sections most often included on a resume. Your contact information with your name, mailing address, phone number, and a professional email address. Then next, a summary of qualifications that highlights your relevant or transferable strengths and achievements. And then your education section, relevant coursework, volunteer experience related to public health, professional experience, honors and awards, and affiliations through professional association would be some of the sections. So some additional sections that can be added are your individual skills and activities. Maybe you're speak another language, you would definitely want to include that as well. And then to give your document a professional, polished look, be sure to use consistent formatting and fonts and keep your resume at no longer than 2 pages. So next, we're going to take a closer look at our sample here. So you want to include a header, again with your name bolded and slightly larger than the other text, and include your address, your phone number, a professional email as was mentioned, and then that you want that brief summary, and this is where you're going to highlight your relevant skills related to public health. If you're making a career transition with your degree, think of those transferable skills from your past experience. Maybe they're skills from volunteer work or from your academic program that you want to highlight. In this case, Jonathan states, Master of Public Health, candidate seeking an internship, dedicated and engaged professional, volunteer and community member with experience working with the West Nile virus and HIV prevention, delivered weekly workshops to 10 to 30 at-risk youth on STDs, anger management, and personal hygiene. And he goes on. So he's just a brief summary to engage the reader. Like, yes, this person is interesting. Let's read further. So next, Jonathan, he decided to list his education before his experience because he's making a career transition and he wants the reader to see that he's working on his MPH degree. He also includes a section of relevant coursework that he's completed. The coursework section is optional and may not be needed if someone has years of experience in the field of public health. So you can decide whether that would be appropriate for you or not. And then next, Jonathan also decided to highlight his volunteer experience as a West Nile virus task force volunteer. And he put that first before his other experience. So he included bullet points to describe what he accomplished during the volunteer work. And he starts the bullets with an action verb such as deliver, facilitate, and collaborate. When he describes his work as a fitness trainer, he focuses on the health benefits of his work and quantifies his accomplishments when possible. So if you're making a career transition, include again those transferable skills such as organization, collaboration, and listening skills. And this sample is in the Optimal Resume System on the Career Services website. So you can take a closer look there. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the Optimal Resume System coming up. So next, let's take a look at what to include in a cover letter. So you want to use business format for your letter, keep it less than 1 page, and include, in general, 4 short paragraphs: an introductory paragraph, a paragraph about your education, a paragraph about your work experience, and then a closing. So we'll take a closer look at that. So coming up, but before we take that closer look, I want to stress that if you use a template, be sure that you change it to reflect your qualifications in your writing style. And I strongly encourage you to run it through Grammarly on the Writing Center website to check spelling and grammar. And then don't even completely count on that spell check. carefully read it line by line. It's so easy to for a typo to slip by. So just, check and double check it. So next, we'll take a closer look at the sample. So notice that Jonathan again uses a business letter format. He researched his target organization so that he can address the letter to the correct person. And in his introduction, he clearly states that his purpose is seeking a practicum experience for his MPH academic program. And he gives a reason why he's interested in that particular site. And then in the second paragraph, he provides information about his academic program. So he talks a bit about what he's taken, something about what he's learned, maybe some things that he's been really interested in that paragraph. And then next, he talks about his experience. So the third paragraph, and again, keep it short, he describes his volunteer work on the West Nile Task Force. And he also briefly describes his professional work as a fitness instructor. And then in the closing paragraph, he states his enthusiasm for starting his practicum, and he provides a link to more information about his Walden program. And he also asks for an opportunity to discuss his qualifications. So again, you can find this and other examples of cover letters in the Optimal Resume system on the Career Services website. And I'll also briefly touch on, if you feel you want help, you can make an appointment with a career advisor as well to get some assistance and some feedback on your document. So next, you may want to consider creating a career portfolio to leave a lasting impression and set you apart from other applicants. So for the purpose of your practicum search, we generally recommend creating a tactile career portfolio that you can bring to information informal interviews. So what should you include in a career portfolio? So include Walden specific items such as Walden University information, your MPH program information, the requirements and course descriptions, maybe a writing sample, something from your coursework that you're very proud of if you feel that would be applicable, and then a copy of the field site guide, your cover letter, resume, letters of recommendation, and any others that you think might be helpful. So next, we're going to talk about, briefly touch on networking strategies. So you want to make sure that you're networking throughout your MPH program. I can't overemphasize the importance of this. You want to be meeting other professionals in the public health field. And there are many ways to network. You can join and become active in a professional association, such as the American Public Health Association. If you belong to a national or international chapter of a professional association, look to see if they have a regional or state chapter so you can engage in face-to-face networking if possible. Establish a profile on LinkedIn and join groups related to public health. Start volunteering at public or nonprofit health organizations. Reach out and conduct informational interviews. You may gain valuable information and possible leads for your field experience search. Your contact may be aware of some organizations or agencies that you haven't even considered. I work with a student who found her practicum site through reaching out to a public health professional on LinkedIn. She introduced herself, described what she was interested in doing, commented on how he had experience in the areas she was interested in learning more about, and she asked for his advice. And that connection led to her obtaining a practicum site at her state's Department of Public Health. So next, you're ready to reach out to a site. So there are several ways to reach out. When searching for field sites, one of the most common ways is to make a phone inquiry. So to prepare for that call, make sure that you have reviewed their website. Know what you want to say to communicate who you are and what you're looking for. This could be a request for a meeting or additional contact information, where you can send your resume or portfolio. There's a good chance that you may have to leave a voicemail message. So make sure that you leave contact information and speak clearly and slowly. If you were referred to the site, mention the name of the person who referred you. You can also reach out to potential field sites via email. So whenever possible, it's best to be able to address your email inquiry to someone specific rather than having a generic greeting. You may be able to locate the name of a potential field site supervisor on the organization's or agency website or on LinkedIn, or by calling first and asking who you should address the email to with the information. So make sure you use formal language and proof again for typos and grammatical errors before you send the email. You may want to look at inquiry examples in the Optimal Resume system on the Career Services website, and then again, run your email through Grammarly on the Writing Center website. And be brief and concise. Most people are busy, so you want to be clear about who you're looking for and what you're looking for. So make sure to attach a PDF of your resume and cover letter so that your potential field site supervisors will easily be able to assess if you're a good fit. You may also choose to stop by in person at an organization or agency. Make sure that you dress appropriately for your visit, and bring a notebook, a pen, and a copy of your resume and cover letter and portfolio if you have one. And exhibit a friendly, professional demeanor when you visit. If the visit is unscheduled, be prepared to leave your documents if there's no one available to speak with you. And then we mentioned before initiating an informational interview as part of networking. It's also an effective approach to directly contact potential sites. So research the agency before calling, ask to speak with a supervisor, and when you have him or her on the phone, clearly articulate your purpose and ask to schedule an informational interview. And here's an example of what you might want to say to set up an informational interview when you've been referred by someone. If you're making a cold call with no referral, just remove the information about the referral and bring a notebook to take notes, and again, a copy of your resume to the informational interview as well. And then asking for an informational interview is a very friendly, open-ended approach. So during my career, I've been asked a number of times for an informational interview. So I'm always very happy to do that, and it's a kind of more informal conversation. But if you don't receive a response, don't be discouraged. Just follow up, and if still no response, just move on. So next, we're going to take a look at a few steps to prepare for an interview. So your marketing efforts have been successful, and now you have an interview. So what do you do to prepare? So you want to research the organization and reassess your qualifications, how you're a good fit, and then develop relevant examples of what you've done in the past, some things from your academic work, your interests, and your commitment to the field of public health. And then prepare for common questions and prepare to talk about your Walden program and the practicum requirements, and then practice a number of times. So Dr. Perkins, could you share interview tips based on your prior experience?
Definitely. So when you're going into your formal interview, be prepared to demonstrate whatever skills the position may call for. So if you are interviewing for a position that has a strong epidemiology focus, then you may be asked to complete an epidemiology curve. If you are going into a position where you would have to do a lot of presentations or a lot of marketing materials, you may be asked to do a small 5 to 7 minute presentation on a topic of your choice. Particularly if you are asked to do a panel interview, the individuals that sit on that panel may require or request different things of you. So they may want to see how you interact doing some role play if you are going to be talking about HIV and you've indicated that you have specific training in that area. They may want to see how you do a one-on-one role play with someone on risk reduction or harm reduction. So when you're going in, you make sure that you're as prepared for that specific role as you can be. So you are the subject matter expert of yourself and your work experiences and your collective education. So when you get into the interview, make sure that you're able to communicate that in an effective manner and that you're able to articulate what the role requires and how your knowledge and abilities kind of coincide with what the agency is looking for.
Great, thank you, Dr. Perkins. I'll quickly share that I recently worked with a student, and just as you said, when she went in for the interview, they asked her to create a quick PowerPoint and a brochure on the spot. They gave her some time and asked her to do that, and she said she just relied on her academic work, what she had, some projects she had done with her for academic work, and she was able to accomplish it, and they were really impressed, and she got the position. So great information. So next, you want to be sure to follow up. If potential field site supervisors or other professionals have taken the time to speak with you, be sure to send a thank you note. If you've sent emails and followed up, but you haven't heard back, don't be afraid to politely and diplomatically be persistent. But at some point, you just move on. And of course, no matter how promising a site seems, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't stop your search until you have a solid offer. So next, I'm going to go over some career services resources that you might find helpful for your search. As Janine mentioned, we now have a link to relevant career services resources directly on the Field Experience website. And you can see that there with the red arrow. Or you can go directly to the Career Services website, which you can access from your My Walden portal. And here we have a number of resources. And I'm going to point out just a few. We have, looking down here on the lower left, we have the archive webinars, and that's where you'll find this archived webinar. And then on the job and internship site, you'll find some job and internship postings. And then on the there's the link to the optimal resume system where you'll find the sample resume and cover letter that we went over today. And I'm going to show you a bit more about that in another slide here in a few seconds. And then on the resources tab on the horizontal navigation bar, we have resources about college, specific to your college, and sites to research. Some nonprofit organizations and professional associations are listed there. And then under the resumes and CVs tab, we have more information on crafting a resume. And then on the interviewing tab, you'll find additional information on preparing for an interview. And then I'd also like to point out, if anyone's interested in scheduling an appointment with Career Services, on the blue button on the left where it says schedule an appointment, you can find information on how to do that. So next, here's a little more information, a little more detail about what's on that resources tab on the horizontal navigation bar. So you can see that you'll find a list of professional associations related to public health. You'll find volunteer opportunities, sites to search for nonprofits, and resources specific for students with a field experience requirement. And then on the optimal resume system, which is a great tool that I strongly encourage everyone to take a look at, you'll find field experience specific sample resumes and cover letters, And there's an interview prep tool that you can use to practice interviewing. And I hear a lot of excellent feedback from students about using that interview prep feature. To use the system, you can set up a free account and use one of the sample resumes or cover letters as a template if you like, but remember to change it and make it your own, as we mentioned earlier. And when setting up your free account, use your Walden email address as your email address when you're setting up the account. If you just want to go in and peruse the sample resumes and cover letters, you don't need an account to do that. But if you want to use one as a template or you want to use the interview prep feature, you'll need to create an account. And then the optimal resume system can also be used to create an online career portfolio to share with potential field site supervisors. You can also print out your career portfolio documents, collect them into a professional looking binder to create a tactile portfolio that you can bring with you to potential field sites during an interview. Keep in mind that it's never too early to start working with career services to help you prepare your resume and cover letter and explore strategies to help you find your site. So next, we're going to go over some questions that have been coming in. So let's see. Dr. Perkins, I think this question is for you. What should a student do if they can't find a practicum site, or if they find one and the site doesn't want to complete the paperwork?
Okay, so if you're having challenges with identifying and securing a placement, your first stop would be to reach out to Janine, and then she will direct you to some of the resources that we have on our website. If you've already spoken with her and you're still facing challenges, then simply give me an email, send me an email, include the agencies that you have reached out to and what their response has been, as well as a copy of your resume and the geographic region that you are limiting your search to. And then I will schedule an opportunity for us to chat over the telephone one-on-one, just to give you some more direct pointers and identify new agencies for you to reach out to. In the event that the agency does not want to sign our affiliation agreement and their legal team has talked to our legal team, at that point we encourage students to move forward with identification of a new site. Once our legal people say no and the others say no and we can't come to a happy median, really at that point there's nothing more we can do about it.
Thank you. So here's another question. I'm working in a healthcare department, and in the case that I want to get involved in research work, I need an ethical approval. What would you recommend?
So in looking at an ethical approval, I'm going to assume that you mean an IRB of some sort. So that is something that we really try to discourage students from having to take on during their field experience, just because it can be time intensive getting the approval necessary prior to you logging any hours. So if that's something that you're very interested in doing for your field experience, then I would encourage you to reach out to our internal IRB office and schedule an opportunity to chat with them to see if it's something that really needs IRB approval, or is it something that can be done without that approval and you can kind of still do a little bit in the line of research, but not be dealing with human subjects and things that would cause you to need a full IRB approval.
Okay, great, thanks. So, and here's another question. How can we get an agreement from the agency?
Janine, I'm going to let you take that one.
Sure. When you talk with your site, you will be discussing with them a field site agreement, and as soon as you submit your application and provide the name of the administrator who can talk about that with me, I tend to take it right from your application. But if they ask you ahead of your application, I'm more than happy to talk with them and to you about it as well. So I basically would provide them with our Walden University Affiliation Agreement, otherwise known as a WUA. And I would ask them if they could sign that as is, or if they would like to make changes, or if they have an agreement template that they would like us to review. And at that point, then I obtain the information and submit it to our central office of field experience. The contract administrator will then take over and discuss that and continue the negotiations with your site. But many sites will sign our WUAA as is, but anytime they need to make changes, they're welcome to do so.
Okay, thank you. So here's another question. And this question is asking about what if there is travel required?
Okay. So in the event that your agency requires you to travel, you need to first kind of be open with, is it local travel, just driving around the service area, or are they going to require you to fly different places to different sites? We typically don't see a lot of travel required outside of the general area. If it is the general area and you're using your personal vehicle, then if that's something that you're comfortable with, just make sure that you have proper insurance and you're able to provide that to the agency. If it's something that you're not comfortable with, or you are in an area where it is a little bit difficult to navigate, then be open with your agency about that as well, and find out if there is travel involved during your interview process.
Okay, thank you. Another question. What should I do if a Walden MOA is in place relative to the MPH program, and yet it is not being honored by the participating organization?
Janine, you want to talk about the Memorandum of Agreement?
Sure. The MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding, and sometimes even if there is one in place, changes can have occurred since it was finalized. Our list of sites on file go back years, and so even if it was 1 year ago or even 2 months ago, the site always has the right to make any changes. Sometimes new administration comes in or their site has new requirements. So in that case, it's just a matter of letting me know, and then I'll follow up to get the information that's needed, and I will get that information over to our contract administrator. So that isn't unusual. Just because it's on file, it doesn't mean it can be necessarily still current or still honored by the site.
Thanks, Janine. I'm going to go ahead one slide so everyone can see that contact information. And so we do have another question. Does Walden University have some specific sites in the U.S. and overseas for MPH students to complete their practicum?
I'll take that one. So while we do have a list of sites that we've had success with in the past, it is not a requirement that you use an agency that a previous student has used. So the world is your oyster, so to speak. We can share previous site information, but we do not share, and I want to be very clear, we do not share previous preceptor information with students, because as we all know, job titles change, roles change, and staff changes. So we don't want to send a student to an agency looking for a specific person that may no longer be there. So we do have agencies that we can work with, that we've worked with in the past. For an example, there's an agency in Atlanta that we work very well with that takes our students each term. And then there are other areas that we necessarily don't have that same relationship with. So it's really going to be each agency on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. So just to clarify, because there's another related question, we're not able to provide the specific contact information for those.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, and this question is related. It's if we locate a site that's on the list of previously used sites for Walden students, how do you recommend we begin the introduction process?
Right. So when you're introducing yourself, you can definitely reference that you understand that the agency has worked with Walden before. and you want to, kind of thank them in advance for taking the time to chat with you, given that they've had experience with us in the past. But each agency really deserves their own very formal outreach. You don't want to go in and say, oh, well, you've already worked with us, so are you going to take me too? You still want to be very respectful and very professional, like you would with an agency that is completely brand new for us.
Great, thank you. And here's another question. So great to see the questions coming in. Any recommendations for full-time employees?
Yes. So if you work full-time outside of health promotion, health education, public health, and you work in a non-industry related field, you want to find an agency that has extended week hours or weekend hours. A lot of times this will be a community-based organization that does a lot of work with the community that needs to be available during non-business hours. If you are working in some close to an industry related field, you may look internally if the agency is large enough. So if you work full time for, let's say, the American Red Cross, then look internally to see if there are other opportunities and what their policy is on during your internship, or what we consider practicum at place of employment. A lot of times we do see agencies willing to work with students because they know they've been supportive throughout the process of them completing their MPH, and so they have something built in to their policy about how a student can get field experience. And if that is not a possibility, then, and you still have questions after you've had those two options, then just reach out to me directly and I will guide you based on your specific geographic area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, is it possible to do a research study in my own department with a different preceptor?
It is possible, but again, let me caution you using terms like research study, because research studies will require IRB approval, and that can be time sensitive as well as time exhaustive, and you want to have a meaningful 200 hours. So you don't want to spend an entire term trying to get IRB approval, and then you have one term remaining to complete all of your hours. So when it comes to research-based field experience, I just caution you to really see if that's how you want to spend your time, and again, reach out to our internal IRB, our institutional review board, to see if it's doable in your time frame.
Thank you. Here's another one. Is there a way to review some of what we've learned in our courses to prepare for an interview for a specific practicum opportunity? For example, going over statistics, making charts and graphs for a file statistics interview.
Okay. So really, as you go through the program, you should be keeping a record and maintaining notes of your materials and assignments. I'm really not sure how far back you can go within your program once the course is over, if you still have access to that information. I'm really guessing that you don't, so you want to make sure that you are maintaining those throughout your program, in the event you do not have access to them at all anymore.
Great, thanks. And you might want to check with your academic advisor too. They might know how far back you can go for that information. It's probably, as Dr. Perkins mentioned, very limited. So let's see here. Do we have any more questions? It looks like we are out of time, and we went through the questions as they were asked in the order that they were asked. So I'd like to start to wrap up. And you saw that, let me back up one slide. So as Janine mentioned, here's the contact information to assist you through the practicum process. So for questions about the application requirements and the process, and In procedures, contact Janine and then contact Dr. Perkins if you have special challenges identifying or securing a site and questions about practicum activities. And then we invite you to stay in contact with the Career Services Center by joining the Career Services LinkedIn group. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join us on Facebook, and read Walden student success stories on our blog. And then use the features on the optimal resume system that I previously mentioned. And you can access all of the resources on the Career Services website at careercenter.waldenu.edu. And then remember, we're here to support you in your search. And so with that, I'd like to wrap up our program and thank you, Dr. Jennifer Perkins and Janine Hradsky, for your insights into the public health practicum process. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.